Hello and good afternoon. My name is Scott Davis. I am an IT Solutions Architect here at IntermixIT, and today we are going to be discussing the crypto viruses and how a single virus can sink your business. Just some housekeeping. If you do have any questions or comments during this webinar, please shoot me an email at sdavis@intermixit.com. After the webinar, I will go through the questions and I will take some time and I will answer all the questions that do come in. So if you do have questions, again, email me at sdavis@intermixit.com, and you can see that email address on the screen right now, and I will show it again at the end of the presentation. So what are crypto viruses? Crypto viruses are a form of malware which encrypts files on a computer and the attached resources, and then will demand a ransom to obtain the decryption keys. The type of malware is commonly known as ransomware. The evolution of ransomware is actually quite old. Back in 1989, the first AIDS Trojan, or PC Cyborg, actually would claim a user's license to a piece of software had expired, would encrypt the file names on the drive, and required users to pay $189 to unlock the system. 2005, 2006, a string of GP code, CryZip, and others began using RSA encryption schemes. This is really the first stage of ransomware where it encrypted large amounts of data on computers. The third generation, although positioned as free, the phone call to obtain the key was routed in a way to collect large long-distance charges. What you saw with the third generation is typically it would use like a Windows product activation, and these were non-encrypting, but the message would stay on the screen, and like I just said, they would route that phone call in a way that they were able to collect large long-distance charges. The fourth generation, 2013, 2014, was really the reemergence of CryptoLocker and the encryption of data and requiring payment to recover that data. CryptoLocker was really the first one to utilize a new currency known as Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a secure, anonymous online currency, and it really just reopened up the floodgates, as you will, to ransomware and what ransomware is today. Today's ransomware is designed to gain access to your computer using several methods, including phishing, malware-laced websites, and even malware-laced web ads. Just last week, we saw the AOL ad network was hacked and included sites like LA Weekly, FHM, The Weather Bug, AOL.com, GameZone, The Huffington Post, Houston Press, and many other websites that utilize the AOL network actually deployed a variant of ransomware, which was known as Kovtar, Kovter, and this ran on AOL's ad network between December 31st and January 5th. Some are saying it could have actually been deployed earlier than that, but for sure it has been running December 31st through January 5th. The latest variants are capable of encrypting over 130 file types on local hard drives, USB-attached storage, and network resources. Network resources is going to be anything that's a map drive. So your P drive, if it's a public drive, your U drive for the users, those potentially have the same risk of being encrypted and locked. In addition, some of the variants are designed to disable Windows Restore, Windows Shadow Copy, and corrupt even local backups if it has access to them. So how does crypto infect? Commonly, malware like crypto arrives in the form of an email designed to get the end user to click a website link, which carries the crypto malware package. Now, we just discussed another method where just by simply going to Huffington Post or AOL.com, the malware-laced adware or ads on that website actually deployed the package and infected your system. But The crypto malware targets your end user's workstations, and it utilizes security vulnerabilities over Microsoft Windows, Adobe Flash, Java, and other third-party software programs to scan and encrypt the workstation and those attached drives. I mentioned this, and I just want to point on it, is maintaining good software updates, obviously, for Windows is critical, but also making sure your Java, your Adobe Flash, your Shockwave, and the third-party internet plugins that are available are updated as well, because a lot of times viruses and malware infects your computer using those vulnerabilities in those third-party applications instead of the root Windows system. Windows is known, everyone knows to update their Windows computers, but how often are your end users really updating Java, Flash, iTunes, and a lot of the third-party programs? Now, iTunes is not known as a channel where crypto infects, but it is another third-party tool that does connect to the internet. So that should also be updated. What is encrypted? The latest variants are designed to scan and encrypt over 130 file types. This includes your Microsoft Office, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Access, Adobe products, Photoshop, Acrobat, your PDF documents. How many PDF documents do you store regularly? InDesign, your images, GIF, JPEG, PNG. If you're a photographer or you know a photographer, the RAW format is really the highest grade picture quality you can take when snapping pictures. Certificates. Certificates such as those that Microsoft Exchange is using, third servers that you have that have locally stored certificates to ensure stability and SSL and maintain your SSL certificate. Obviously, those also can be encrypted and locked. Microsoft database files, and there's many more common file types. Obviously, I might have just touched on 20 or 25. When there's over 130 file types included, there's a lot more. How do you know you have crypto? One of the easiest ways to tell is when you're opening documents, they appear corrupted. The other key way, especially for IT professionals and even the end user to realize, is there's typically 3 documents that are stored on the computer in every file that gets encrypted. It's a .html, a .txt, and .url. And somewhere along that name, it includes how_decrypt or a variant of that. And it has to do that because your end user and the IT professional needs to know how to decrypt the file and ultimately how to pay for that decryption key. So there has to be a message to the user. And this is just one of the methods they have used to display that message so that you are alerted that, hey, I do have crypto, I need to do something. Do you pay or not pay? Those are the questions we'll get into. So I have to ask, what if every document, spreadsheet, database, image, file, PDF was instantly deleted from your computer? Would losing your company's historical archives, records, customer data, internal documentation sink your business? Well, ransomware aims to do just that. For clients that fall within HIPAA requirements, would the associated fines and or public disclosure of the attack sink your business? These are just a couple of the questions. So, limit the damage. Although there is no 100% guarantee you won't be infected with a form of ransomware, you can, however, reduce the chance of getting infected. You can limit the risk to your company if ransomware does get onto your network. Typically what we do is once we realize the client does have the ransomware, one of our first things is to find out what has been encrypted, locate the computer that is infected, make sure that is powered off, unplug the network cable is popular. But ultimately, we highly recommend, if it does have the crypto at any point, a complete system reinstall on that system should be done. Because you can clean it up as well as you can, but there's still no guarantee that the crypto malware is 100% off. Plan to be reactive. Obviously, you want to plan a reactive data strategy, planning for both virtual and physical threats to your network. But you also want to be proactive. You want to be proactive with your security strategy. You want to prevent malware and other threats from your infrastructure before it has a chance to infect and encrypt that data. Being reactive or planning reactively is that step that you need to have just in case those proactive measures don't work or are not effective. So planning a backup strategy. Here at IntermixIT, we recommend that you utilize a 3-tiered backup strategy. The 3 tiers that we typically use and recommend is Windows shadow copies. This is built into Windows Server operating systems. The recovery time is very simple, it's easy to do, and it's just an amazing tool that's built right into Windows. On-site backup and then off-site backup. With the Windows shadow recovery, or shadow copies, your recovery time, you're looking probably less than 4 hours. Now, some variants of crypto will actually disable the Windows shadow copies. And obviously, if it is disabled or it becomes corrupt, you need to have an on-site backup that typically a recovery time, potentially 12 hours. A lot of it's going to depend on the media. Are you still using tapes? Is it just an external hard drive? So there are some questions. It's how much data is infected, how much do you have to recover. So there's a lot of things that goes into these time estimates. But obviously, with an off-site backup, this really is there as that final back check. So if crypto does infect, if a disaster happens in your building and you have, obviously Windows shadow copy, the server's down. You have the on-site backup that's no longer available. Off-site backup is stored off-site. It's traditionally safer. It's going to be, that last option of data recovery. And of course, if you don't have a backup, do you pay the ransom? If you find that your data backup library is corrupt or incomplete and the loss of data would sink your business, you really are put in a choice that you have to take the risk and pay the ransom. Just because you pay the ransom does not guarantee the successful recovery of your data. And that is key to remember, and something each time I've actually gone through the process where we have paid the ransom with the client, and so far we've had success in getting the majority of the data back and unencrypted, but there is that chance that we pay them money over the anonymous currency of Bitcoin, and we never hear anything back. We never get an unencryption key. Or ultimately even the government gets a hand on it and they shut down the websites that are used to deploying those decryption keys. So there's multiple facets to recovering the data and reasons why we don't recommend paying the ransom. The majority of variants of crypto malware will require you to pay with Bitcoin, which is an anonymous payment system designed to be harder to trace. From Microsoft's Malware Protection Center, we don't recommend you pay. There is no guarantee that handing over the ransom will give you access to your files again. Just reiterating what I just said. Now, being proactive. Again, you'll hear me mention our tiered strategy. I mentioned, a tiered backup strategy. Well, we recommend it the same way, a tiered security strategy to detect, block internet threats, including the crypto malware. Our tiered strategy includes OpenDNS, intrusion protection, malware scanning at the firewall, proper management of workstations and servers, Bitdefender Anti-Virus with behavioral analysis. And I'm going to get into each one of those in a little bit more. OpenDNS is a great tool. I highly recommend it for individual users, corporate users, businesses, enterprises of all sizes. It blocks connections to malicious websites to prevent the infections before the end users even load the site. Kind of how OpenDNS works is you have internally on your network, you have your computer, which is talking to the DNS server, which is typically the DNS server in-house. That DNS server is then routing everything out to the internet or to another DNS server, typically a Google DNS or OpenDNS, or there's many public DNS entries that you can use. So what OpenDNS is, it actually filters and it scans for phishing websites, and it has just a huge database of sites that are known to be suspicious or known to be related to phishing or malware. And it just blocks it before it even gets to your server, to your DNS server, to your workstation. They utilize predictive intelligence to uncover when and where new cyber attacks are being staged. So this is going to work in your advantage, because they're able to say all of a sudden there's large amounts of traffic going to this IP range, and they can actually say, you know what, this looks really suspicious, and they can block it, protecting you usually before it even hits your company's network. After OpenDNS, proper firewall security. IntermixIT, we utilize Cisco Meraki, and we utilize the Dell Sonicwall Firewalls. When properly licensed and utilized, both provide intrusion prevention, malware virus detection, and other key features to protecting your infrastructure. The bottom line is having a firewall with the ability to scan and detect these threats before the workstation level. Now, OpenDNS is kind of in that cloud. It's that cloud level security. Things can still get through that, and ultimately, that's where your proper firewall security is going to come into play, where it's going to detect those things coming into your network that got through that OpenDNS range. Because of all of these solutions, nothing is 100%. And I've seen crypto for the last 5 or 6 years, and it has only evolved to be harder to trace, harder to track, and harder to detect on your network. Workstation, server management, the IntermixIT remote monitoring and management, we call it RMM, system scans and automatically deploys Windows updates and third-party software updates automatically based on the schedule that we set with you. Securing the third-party software is just as critical as Windows updates. No matter if you're utilizing the IntermixIT solution with remote monitoring and management, or if you're an IT professional out there on your own and you're just looking at protecting your own network, Windows updates, third-party software updates, finding a way to ensure that those are all current, those are updated, and that's your Java, your Flash player, your Adobe Reader, stuff like that. You want to just make sure you're updating everything. I can't stress that enough. And the final layer of security for your network is on the workstation, your Bitdefender Anti-Virus. You need a solution at the workstation level, because at the end, the weakest link of any network is the end user. They're the ones that are clicking on the links in email. Those are the ones that are going to the websites that potentially bring the malicious software onto your network. So with Bitdefender, it is antivirus malware scanner installed locally on each workstation. It's one of the leading antivirus solutions for over the last 10 years. It's highly recommended. We utilize it for several reasons. One, because it is highly recommended, it is highly used, but also it has a very minimal footprint on your workstation. And a lot of times it's kind of, do you sacrifice the performance or the protection? And there's always that fine line in between. We have found Bitdefender to really solve that solution where it protects, but it really has that minimal footprint, so it doesn't affect the end user. Bitdefender also comes with behavioral analysis. The behavioral analysis, what it's doing is it's scanning for the malware. It's scanning for those things that just doesn't seem to be the normal methods of what should be happening on the computer. But with behavioral analysis, Bitdefender is able to detect most variants of the crypto virus, which is huge. So what does it mean? The only way to defeat today's crypto malware and the next generation of threats is to implement a multi-tiered security strategy and plan that multi-tiered backup strategy. And not just putting it in play, but testing it on a regular basis. And when I say testing it, you know, restore just a random file out on your network drive. Say, you know what, this file, let's say it got lost, and this is, you know, a core document that HR uses, or that the sales team uses. Well, try recovering it and see at what point you were able to recover it. Obviously, you have the original file because nothing really happened to it, but you get to see the ability of the strategy you have in place for those backups. It gets a little harder to test your multi-tiered security strategy unless you have a certified ethical hacker or you're able to provide or reach out to a vendor that provides ethical hacking to test and look for holes in your security, holes in your firewall, and really do some penetration testing. So testing, especially your backup strategy, is key, and I recommend it for every environment no matter what, because the last thing you want is to be in a situation where crypto does come in and you're forced to make the decision, do I pay the ransom or not? Because once you decide to pay the ransom, you still have to then find someone that is going to sell you Bitcoins that you can utilize to purchase the key to send to them. I mean, it's a process, and it is not a very fun process to go through. So obviously, I kind of flew through the session. If you do have any questions, please, again, send them to me at sdavis@intermixit.com. If you'd like to learn more about the tiered strategies or schedule a network assessment from IntermixIT, what we can do is just shoot an email to info@intermixit.com and we can get that scheduled for you. What our network assessment does is it really brings us into your environment. We install some tools on your network that we will uninstall when we're done, but it looks for vulnerabilities, it looks for patching, it looks for the third-party software, and it really does a full analysis of what your network is and what potential threats your network has that you may not even be aware of. So with that, if you do want to schedule a network assessment, obviously please email info@intermixIT. And if you have any other additional questions on security, crypto viruses, ransomware, please just email me at sdavis@intermixit.com, which is on the screen. And I will be more than happy to answer those questions as they come in. But with that, the presentation is over. So I thank you very much for tuning in. And I look forward to seeing you all in February when we do our next Take 30 with IntermixIT.